So, without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to John and Stan.
It's already on. It's already on.
Oh, good.
There you go.
There we go.
Hi.
Hi.
The thing is, I don't know how much we're actually going to talk about the new book. I think it's.
Oh, we are.
I'm being interviewed by Stan, which is, as I've said backstage, sort of like Tom Hanks talking to Rainn Wilson, right? But as far as it goes, it should be wide-ranging. We were talking about a wide number of subjects in the back.
We're not going to hear about your truant high school years. We're going to talk about the Shattering piece. I'm the interviewer tonight, proud to be so. And John is our guest of honor for this particular event. And I got to say, it's a big pleasure for me. I met John, it must have been about 2008 or 2009.
Yeah.
And got to see John as a really excellent, I guess because of the San Dimas connection, a most excellent president of the Science Fiction Writers of America. Yeah. And we needed him, and he did the job. So he's a patriot in the science fiction world and in the community that we need to talk about more. But so it's a great pleasure for me because we did some good stuff together. It's been a while. I think our biggest parting was in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah.
For the Worldcon of that time. But Shattering Peace, okay, this is volume 7 of the Old Man's War series. And so what I first want from you is a plot summary in less than 1 minute of the entire series to bring us up to speed, please.
Oh, jeez. Okay. So the good news is you get to go to space. The bad news is that you have to be 75 to do it. The good news is when you go, they'll give you a new body. The bad news is that body will probably be dead in 2 years because you're going to go and fight aliens. The good news is eventually the aliens decide that they've had enough of this and decide to form a sort of UN of alien species. The bad news is the humans are left outside of this, right? The good news is that eventually everybody decides that they're going to try this thing called peace and see how it works out, even the aliens and even the humans. The bad news is peace is not quite our thing, and thus the Shattering Peace.
Wow. Okay. 1 minute, 7 volumes. Hopefully some of you remember...
Thank you and good night.
Yeah. The great Monty Python Summarizing Proust contest. This is actually in the running for summarization skill. So in volume 7, I'm going to do as many spoilers as possible for those of you who hate spoilers. There is a kind of a mini UN experiment. Let's put all the people together.
Yep.
Into one, not all.
Yeah.
And then into one little space and see how they live together.
Yep.
But then, because John likes mysteries as well as science fiction, I learned this just recently about him. And I was a lover of mysteries when I was a kid. Didn't even know science fiction existed. John knew both. And so this, like several of his novels that we'll talk about through the hour, is both science fiction and a mystery story. And the mystery is that this little experiment in getting along together disappears entirely and needs to be found. Mm-hmm. So, but one thing I loved in it, and I want to ask you about it, is there is an alien race that is said to be wildly advanced beyond us, so that we are perhaps like mice or even
Please
ants
silence your phones.
compared to this species. But when you actually interact with them, they're like really spoiled bad movie stars. So tell me more about that.
So I used to be a movie critic, as a matter of fact, and so I interviewed lots of movie stars. And in fact, you do find out that a lot of them are basically terrible people. But a lot of them are perfectly decent people. The movie stars are just like us, except they're prettier and they have much more money. But the thing about it is that I am a strong believer that no matter what level of technology you are, as long as you are biological, you will eventually have the problems of biology. And I think about this with humans, right? Like, we are the most technologically advanced as we have ever been. Has that solved our problems? You live in San Francisco, you tell me. And no, it doesn't, because the thing is no matter what level of technology that we are on, until such time as we actually rewire our brains with, modules and wires and everything else, don't let them put wires into your brain. We are running the same software as we've been running for the last 30 or 40,000 years. This is why, the literature from 400 years ago or 1,000 years ago or 6,000 years ago can still speak to us, why we can still enjoy Proust or Shakespeare or the Old Testament or any of these sorts of things. All of these things still speak to us because the humans in them are recognizable to us. We still identify with these stories of old. And so when it comes to the species called the Kansu, in the first 6 books, they are essentially unknowable for 2 reasons. One, because the way that they deal with humans and other species, as pictured in the books, is as these inscrutable, unknowable things. And second of all, because for the story I was telling, it was not important to get into their psyche. But for this book, it was important for me to get into their psyche. So I was like, how alien do I want them to be? And they are still very alien. They still have their own unknowable aims and everything else like that. But at the end of the day, they are still ruled, as we are, and as all the aliens are at the end of it, by their own biology, by their own programming, so to speak, that has been given to them by evolution. And ultimately, in order to make them people, which they have to be, all the aliens, when it comes right down to it, have to be people, you have to accept that they are flawed, that they are emotionally fragile, that they get angry with each other, that they are just as messed up as we are. And isn't that refreshing? It's know that even the most highly technological species that we have ever known still get angry love triangles at each other.
Well, I want to come back to this, but you mentioned don't let them put wires in your head, so we need to make a little diversion before we return to Shattering Peace.
I want to know where this is going.
Well, when the pandemic struck, did you apologize to the American people?
Oh, my God.
Did you feel guilty?
Oh, my God. So I wrote this book in 2014 called Lock-In, where I posited this disease called the Hayden syndrome, which basically took the form of, well, you're sick, and most people were fine, but a certain small percentage were not, and then they got locked into their bodies, and so on and so forth. But it was a pandemic, and I modeled the pandemic and everything else like that. And the story actually took place 25 years later, although there was a novella that was called Unlocked, which was an oral history, and talked about that. And then, of course, we had a pandemic, and people were like, you knew. Yeah. And I'm like...
And apologize, please. Because we were all locked in.
I did not know, right? I want to say, I cannot apologize, and I won't apologize. But, the simple fact is, like, how did you know? How did you know? And I'm like, basic epidemiology and knowledge of how humans work. That's really basically what it came down to. What I can say is my president dealt with it much better.
Well, that's true.
And this is the thing, right? Is that in fiction there are boundaries, right? Because your editor will be like, I'm sorry, that's not realistic. You gotta rein that shit in, right? The real world does not have an editor, right? In the real world, the president can say, yeah, inject bleach, it'll be fine. The fuck, right? Like I said, if I put that in my book, my editor is this is the president you're speaking of. Clearly, no president would ever tell people to inject bleach. So anyway, that was a whole thing, and yeah, so that was a real disappointment to me that the real world only modeled what I did to a point.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is one of my favorites of John's books. I recommend it, and I have to admit that in the onrush of Scalzi books and in my own erratic checking in on my comrades, I did not know until now, and I'm very happy to know that there is a sequel and a trilogy. Well, that's great to know, because the first volume is pretty complete, but there's more to be said there, and it's a detective story. So once again, science fiction detective stories. This is a tradition. We got Asimov and the Naked Sun. I mean, it's a good tradition, because there's nothing better than a mystery story to organize. When you're investigating the solution to the crime, you're also revealing this alien world that the crime took place in and its rules. And so science fiction and mysteries are like form and content, or content and form. The mystery is a great form for it. Yeah. Now, back to space opera.
Sure.
I'm going to say this. Space opera needs to be funny. Discuss.
I don't disagree. I don't know that it needs to be funny per se, but one of the things that I think is really important in writing in general is that you have to have the full smorgasbord of human experience. And I think one of the legitimate complaints that can be laid at the feet of science fiction, fantasy to a lesser extent, but certainly science fiction at a certain time and in a certain place in our history, is that it's always been touted as the literature of ideas, which is a little bit arrogant. All literature is the literature of ideas, let's be honest. But what that meant was that science fiction prized ideas over other aspects of literature, which would include things like characterization and dialogue and believable women and all these other things that are actually good to have. And so I believe that this is much less of a problem with science fiction these days, in part because we have a much more diverse field of writers, and we also have a much more diverse field of readers, so that there is much more for people to read and to experience in it. But ultimately, what it comes down to is you can have all these amazing ideas, but if you don't have people and you don't have situations and you don't have characterizations that really propel people along, then the ideas are sooner or later just absolutely going to fall flat. And so for me, having humor is absolutely important for what I do. But I also want to be very careful not to mischaracterize the importance of it. Like, so example, very recently, I did a book that was called When the Moon Hits Your Eye.
Like a big pizza?
Yeah. No, you're right. The book is The Moon Turns to Cheese.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember when my editor asked me, what's the next book? I was like, I don't know, I'm going to turn the moon to cheese. Fine, right? And then I would tell my friends. My friends would be like, "Well, what are you going to do? A moon turns to cheese." Of course, that's what you would do. Only you would do that. Only you are stupid enough to think that's a good idea. And I did think that was a good idea, because the whole point of it was not the moon turning to cheese, but the thing of all of us at some point in our lives have experienced something universal, and we have all had to deal with it, and we had absolutely no control over it. And it might have been something like a natural disaster, or it might have been something like a war, or it might have been something like an election. It might have been all these things that we all had to deal with. It was a common thing. Everybody had to deal with it. And because it was the moon turning to cheese, obviously people would assume, and they were correct, that I would make them laugh about it, right? But I also wanted to make sure that there were places where you cried about it. And if you read the book, there are certainly a number of places where people read the book and then they immediately sent me email. They said, "You motherfucker, you made me cry about the moon turning to cheese." And I was like, yes, because that's the point. You want to give the whole emotional range because we live in a full emotional range of things. No matter what happens, no matter how absurd the premise, no matter what the circumstance, the darkest comedy comes out of war, right? The happiest moments can also have the bittersweetness of knowing that loved ones aren't there to experience with you. Our job as writers is to make sure that the full range of emotional delivery is there. So yes, comedy is absolutely part of space opera, as well as everything else. I tend to be funny because I tend to be funny. And that's just an aspect of my personality. I think it's perfectly fine for people who are not naturally funny not to prioritize humor because that's not their thing. I don't do description a lot because that's not my thing. If you read my books, there's very little clue what anybody looks like, unless there's a specific reason to do it. But humor is a thing that some people do well and some people don't. And if you don't do it well, that's cool because you have so many other things to do.
No, we need more of it. But I love your writing and comedy. There is a Scalzi narrator
Yeah.
that is consistent, and we read him for that. And then the content can be various. But I think space opera needs more. Has a higher need for comedy to make it interesting or make it make sense. A tragic space opera, I'm not seeing it.
Said the man who wrote Aurora.
Well, that's true.
I mean, come on, sir.
But wait a second, I got to backtrack from that really quickly and say, am I right that Patrick Nielsen Hayden is your editor?
Yes.
And you told him you were going to write a novel in which the moon turned to cheese?
Yeah.
Were there tapes running? This I gotta see. I mean, Patrick, I love Patrick. He's one of the great editors and one of the great patriots in the science fiction community, I gotta say.
Sure.
Stalwart. And I'm sure John is lucky to have him, as all of his writers are. But nevertheless, he's a serious... is he a serious guy? I don't know him well enough to say, but I could well imagine him being a little appalled.
I mean, here's the thing.
You got a 10-book contract. It's book
no,
number 9.
Well, no, the
Now
book.
it's 15. It's
The
20,
total
23.
23.
I called it.
Yeah. No. So
23-book contract, a little unusual in my field.
Yeah. No, this is great because we just got a 10-book. Originally, the book contract was 13 books. And that was signed in 2015. And then last year we signed a 10-book extension. Would you like to know what those 10 books are going to be?
Yes.
So would I. This is, by the way, where other writers stab me. They're like, you got a 10-book deal and you don't know what those books are.
Yeah.
Die by bus. I'm like, fair. But
No, the proper response is, you poor schmuck. You've just tied yourself to the wheel for 50 more lifetimes.
yeah, but here's the thing, okay, which is that I am
You're a writer, man.
the thing is I'm going to write a book a year no matter what anyway. That's just kind of who I am. That's how my brain works. I do a book a year and then I'm happy. And so if I'm going to do a book a year, I don't want to have to argue about contracts.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't want to have to sit there and super privileged, right? Like every other writer is like, I have to fight and scratch and, bargain with the devil to get a contract. And you're like, I got a 10-book contract like you do. So But the thing is that the nice thing is over the course of the books that I have written for Tor, what they've realized is that I will write a book a year. It will be reliably Scalzi-esque. As you said, there is a Scalzi narrator. Some people like it, some people hate it. If you hate it, don't read it. There are people who have been, I've read 7 Scalzi books and I haven't liked any of them. And that's on you. I am not coming to your house and going, why haven't you read my book yet? I'm just going to stand here until you read it.
I can only second.
I don't have time for that. But this is the thing. So they know that I'm going to do it. So they're like, all right, we're going to lock you up so that we know that there will be a Scalzi book and we can sell it and it will be fine. And that's great for me. I have tenure, right?
Yeah.
Job
security.
I got myself a Tor ring.
Oh.
Yeah, have you said?
That is a familiar emblem.
So the thing is like they don't give these to the author. They're for the employees. If you've been there for a year, they'll give you a Tor ring. I signed the 13 book contract back in 2015, and when the others came up, it's like, you're going to be here for a while. Do you want a Tor ring? I'm like, hell yeah, I do.
I want a Tor ring. I got at least 8 Tor books. I've lost count.
Yeah.
I am a Tor author in some port of my distant past.
Yeah.
And it's a good group, and I'm sure it's something to enjoy, except for the prospect of you are kind of on the hook to produce for a long time.
I mean, I'm about to say something obnoxious.
Uh-oh. What a surprise.
Right,
oh, my God.
This is where it turns. It's a book a year, right? I mean, it's like I write a book. It takes me about 3 months to write a book. And I know. That's sometimes they're longer, sometimes they're shorter. The record, which I don't recommend you doing ever, I wrote a book in 2 weeks. And I didn't tell anybody about it until it came out and it got starred reviews and was on the New York Times bestseller list. And then I was like, okay, you can't hurt me now. And then I told people which book it was. It was The Consuming Fire, the second book of the Interdependency series. But that was a mistake. That was literally just like I looked at the calendar. I'm like, oh, it's June 14th and the book's due on June 18th. Oh. And I turned to Chrissy, my wife. I was like, so you'll slide food under the door. There'll be a jug once a day. You'll move the jug. And she was like, no to the jug. Your office is literally next door to the bathroom, but yes. And otherwise, I wrote it up. So I can write a book a year. Yeah, so it's not bad. I'm sorry.
No, this is all good. I like this.
You're gonna beat me to death when we go back to the green room, aren't you?
No, I'm thinking 2 weeks. It's doable.
Yeah. You could do it.
I'm gonna rethink everything.
Yeah.
It might help me.
An epiphany has just hit Stan.
Yeah. You go fast. That would be. This is kind of. I remember Ray Bradbury used to write 5,000 words a day every day.
Yeah.
This was like a Zen practice for him.
Yeah.
No, maybe it was more.
He would do the thing where he'd go to the library and he'd just put a dime in the typewriter. Yeah.
No, it's a useful gift to have, and I'm pretty damn fast myself, but no, not like that. That's productive. So, thinking about these books,
sure,
and you got some more or less. You have some series that are continuing. You're not done. Right. It doesn't seem like this one is done. It's Shattering Peace. Another spoiler alert. At the end, the universe there does not come to an end, and there's actually more stories to be told.
Sure.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Do you have that scoped? Do you have a sense?
So I'm very fortunate.
Because the Kansu are still inexplicable.
Yes. I'm very fortunate that I don't have to write in the series, this one or any other, unless there's a story I want to tell in it. And this is a thing I was talking to my friend about today, which is science fiction and fantasy people have that first world concern or problem, which is, do they love me for me, or do they love me for my series? And if they love you for the series, that's great because then you can just put the books out in the series and people will buy them, and then you can, do okay. But it also means that you're chained to your series. And if they like you for you, then they will follow wherever it is that you go. I've been very fortunate. It turns out that apparently people like me for me because they love the Old Man's War series, or they love the Interdependence series, or the Lock-In series, or the Dispatcher series, which is another series that I've done. But they also like Red Shirts and When the Moon Hits Your Eye and Starter Villain and all that sort of stuff. So that's so I've been fortunate. And what that means, though, for the series is that I don't have to go back to it unless there is a story I want to tell. So this was 10 years between this one and the last book, the now inaptly named The End of All Things. Because part of it was I left it in a place where I was like, that seems like a good place to leave it. And it took years before my brain was like, I want to say something else in the universe.
It reminds me of the people in our field, and I'm sure they've talked to you. You've heard this before. I won't read a series until I know the last book has been written. And so as a reader, although I've never said this before, I still want to know, is the Lock-In series done at Vind Volume 3? I want to know as a reader.
I am contractually obliged to give at least one more book in the series.
There you go.
There you go. I have people high-fiving right up here. I'm going to tell that to my editors. But part of the question is what form does that take? Is it going to be a whole novel? Will it be a novella? All of those sorts of things. People love that series, but also, where do you put it in the schedule? And here's the thing that I always say with the people who are like, I won't read a series unless I know it's done.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes we don't know it's done. I thought this series was done at book 6 until I finally came up with a book 7. And there is more space to do additional books. So if you will only read when they're done, I got bad news for you. I don't know if it will ever be done because I will still put installments in. Now, I think what the thing is that they're saying is if there's a narrative arc that takes over the entire series that must have a conclusion in the final book, then I want to make sure that that book is done. And I can't gainsay whatever they're going to do, but from a practical point of view, if you do that, the chances are really good that you're not going to get that final novel because that book will come out and it won't sell for beans, and then maybe the second book will come out, but that will sell even less, and then they'll just kill the series. They will the publishers will cut their losses and be like, nobody's buying this series, and they will cut it off there, and then you'll send angry letters to the author going, why didn't you finish this? And it's like, because nobody showed up. If you want to actually support the authors who are writing the series, read the books when they come out and buy the books when they come out, because otherwise that doesn't make the economic argument for the final book coming out. And it's hard to tell people this because they feel, but I've been burned before. You've been burned by a couple of people. Meanwhile, all the rest of the authors are trying really, really hard to get that last book out, but they need to have the economic excuse to do it. And the other thing to remember is, while you are waiting for that next book, there are so many other books, so many other authors. And this is the thing that gets revealed, is that they are not, what you are essentially saying is that I don't actually read in the genre, I read this one author. And that's fine, just admit that's what you're doing. But if you are actually wanting the books to continue to come out, buy them when they come out and understand that the author really depends on you to finish the series, because the publisher is looking at the sales and they're looking at their spreadsheets. And if you don't make the argument for them, it doesn't matter what the author wants to do.
And not only that, buy it in the first week to help to bull rush the bestseller lists.
Bestsellers. So important.
So, John, you've been central in our small town that's scattered throughout space and time, which is the science fiction community. And God bless you for that. And so, from that viewpoint, I'm just going to say myself, by accident and etc., the last science fiction convention I ever went to was 2 weeks before the pandemic struck.
Sure.
And can you tell us what you've seen, how the science fiction convention has done? Because I truly don't know, and I'm interested in your viewpoint, how it's done through this 5 years. Because really, Shelter in Place was not a science fiction thing. It was like every weekend, go gather in place and party your brains out. So how's it gone, do you think, and how's it come now? Has it changed us?
So yes. So here's the thing: is that when the pandemic hit, from the point of view of the science fiction fandom, that it was as with so many other communities, a cataclysmic event. The science fiction fandom really was the first to really come up with the idea of we're all going to congregate at these conventions. We're going to invite the authors. They're going to speak. We're going to do all this stuff. We really developed that model. And particularly, for many, many, many years, it was a fan-run model. The thing of the Comic Cons, as we understand these huge media cons with 50, 60, 80, 100,000 people is a relatively recent thing. There was for the longest time, there were like 2 or 3 of them that were big. And now literally every city over 100,000 has a Comic Con. But the fan-run communities were these conventions that were anywhere between 400 and 4,000 people. Those took a real hit. I go to this one convention which is called Confusion Convention. It's in Michigan, and 2019 they probably had about 1,200 people at it, and it was a secret pro hangout where editors and agents and authors sort of just hung out in Detroit in January. Right? Yeah. Because it was just all the cool kids were there, and it was just a lot of fun, and you could see your favorite science fiction author doing extraordinarily bad karaoke, and then there was a dance, and then there would be panels and readings and all that sort of stuff. Pandemic hit. They finally came back around in 2021 or 2022, and now it's just about 400 people, and it's only just the people who are there regionally. And there are a lot of conventions that are fan-run conventions that have just completely gone away because the support's no longer there. And in some ways, particularly younger fans don't even know that this has happened because their experience of conventions has been the Comic Cons, the big media cons, and all this stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not like bagging on the big media cons. I go to several. I was at New York City Comic Con last week, as a matter of fact. That's not the problem. The problem is that the fan-run portion of the community was really hollowed out by it. And a lot of them still are continuing, but a lot of them are struggling. They're struggling to, get the numbers of people who are attending. They're struggling to get the volunteers to actually run the things. These are, intricate little machines that have lots of moving parts. And as the older fandom drops off, there's sometimes not people replacing them. And then those conventions just die. And so we are seeing a bit of a change in how the community and the fandom comes together.
Without those conventions, do we have a science fiction community in the way that we were used to?
Not in the way that we were used to. But at the same time, the science fiction community has always been kind of a moving target. So like, for example, when I came into the science fiction community in 2002 or 2003, my very first Worldcon, which was TorCon in Toronto, and
I was there.
Yeah, no, I saw you. I didn't know you then. Yeah, but I was like, oh, there's Kim Stanley Robinson. He's so cool. He wrote Red Mars. Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I was like, oh man, I should go say hi. No, I can't do that.
Oh God.
Oh gosh.
I'm very approachable.
No, you. It wasn't you. It was me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I mean, the very first, like, I went to a party at the tour. I will get to answer your question, but I want to tell this anecdote first. I was at the tour party at TourCon, tour books at TourCon, and I'm in this room and I'm just hanging around, and there's this older gentleman who's just standing there, not talking to anybody. And I'm like, well, I will go and talk to this poor old man. And I went and I talked to him. He was very genial, and we talked about a number of things and all that sort of stuff. And he said goodbye and he left. And I was like, I have done my mitzvah for the day. I have, talked up this poor man who had no friends. And I turned to the person that was standing next to me. I was like, who is that guy? And he looked at me. He's like, you asshole, that was Robert Silverberg. And I tell that story to Robert Silverberg all the time. But the thing
Bob
is,
like your Corso. He would be perfectly.
oh God,
vast.
He's the commercial where it's like the most interesting man in the world. That's Bob Silverberg. Sure. But the thing was, it's like at that time there was still, when you thought about like fan writing and stuff like that, it was still fanzines, and there was still that physicality of people writing on paper and so on and so forth. Now you look at where most of the written discussion of science fiction fandom goes on now, or where most of the fan writing goes on now, it's all online. And not only that, but it used to be, there was a rise in the blogs, of course, and then now so much of the community is on Blue Sky, or they're on Threads, or they are on, TikTok has come out and it has revealed a whole new side of fandom. That old fandom is like, who are these people and what is this thing called romantasy? And why is it all of a sudden eating my entire genre? Which I think, by the way, is absolutely awesome, right? Whatever drives people into the bookstores to read and to develop a love of reading, particularly in the genre, is awesome. So for all the people who's like, oh, John Scalzi's got a bag on romantasy, I am not. I am so glad romantasy exists and drives people to the stores. If you are reading romantasy, thank you. If you're writing it, thank you. And buy my book. But as far as it goes, so there's always been that moving target. I would lament the loss of the smaller communities fan-run conventions. I think they will survive. I think they will come back. But there has to be some change, and there has to be some adaptation. They have to do the things that will actually let the younger people come back, and that includes letting some of those younger people in roles that are of responsibility, because they know what people their age want out of a convention.
Yeah. Well, we need them. We need Locus. We need the conventions. We need every weekend of the year to have 3 or 4 small regional conventions happening with people coming in, because the thing that distinguishes the genre from some of the other genres is precisely community.
Yes.
And seeing each other face to face. And I cannot tell you how some extremely famous writers that are actually quite lovely to read, but they themselves are looking haunted by their solitude, and they don't meet their readers in any congenial way, because a signing line in an event is not the same as hanging out at a party. Speaking of which, as a technical question, how can you DJ a dance and be dancing in the same dance?
Okay, so
I don't see how that works.
Okay, so why are you laughing?
The photo evidence is there. The photo at the caption says Scalzi DJing a dance, and he's out in the middle of the floor in a red shirt dancing his brains out. And I'm thinking, where's the DJ?
Okay, 1, the shirt was pink. 2, you don't know this by looking at me, but I took 2 years of jazz and modern dance, right? And in fact, my wife met me because she saw me on the dance floor and was like, that. I have to have that. And I remember standing there with my Coke after, just standing there like drinking my Coke with back to a wall. and literally the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I was interviewing movie stars at this time, so I had a bar that was fairly high. Most beautiful woman in the world comes up to me and is like, "You and I have to dance sometime tonight." I was like, "Now is good." And we danced. It was to the Cure's "Friday in Love." I'm in love. And then I know it's a great song. And then we eventually got together. I took her down to meet my friends from high school, and she charmed them all. And then she went off to get a beer. And as soon as she did, they were like, they leaned in. They're like, "Quick, quick, quick! How you?" And I was like, "Motherfuckers, it's because I learned how to dance, and you all mocked me in high school for it. But now who is laughing? I have this beautiful, perfect woman, and you are alone, and you will all be alone for years." And I was right.
These things can happen.
So, but we danced a lot when we were in our courting years and all that sort of stuff. We would go out and we would dance because that's how we met, and we liked to dance. And many years later, I was a guest of honor at Capricorn, which is a community convention
One of the good ones.
in Chicago. Yeah, and they had a '80s dance, and the DJ was 19 and had not been alive in the '80s. So he was playing all the off-brand '80s songs, right? Like the ones that didn't make the sift. He was like, "Well, this seems like a song that people would listen to," and it's like, "No, this is wrong. This is all wrong. He's doing a terrible job. I could do a better job." And they're like, "Come back next year." I was like, "I will." And I got my little DJ thing, and I went and I did an '80s dance, and Chrissy came with me, and I would put on a song, and it would start, and after like the pressing of the button and the song going, you have 3 to 4 minutes to actually dance with your wife before you have to come back up
and forth.
doing a back and forth.
I was thinking there were wires in your head.
No. Don't put wires in your head. But this has been the thing is that ever since then, science fiction conventions, World Cons, also the Joko Cruise, which I go on every year, have been like, "Hey, do you want to DJ?" And the answer is yes, I do, because that way, I mean, it's fun. It's fun. You control the soundtrack. I give good dance. I know how to program a dance for nerds, which is that nerds have extremely eclectic musical taste. They're like, "Oh, I love the soundtrack to Firefly, and I have all the filk, And so, if you want them to actually dance to songs, you have to actually play the extremely big songs from every decade that they can't possibly miss. It's like being a wedding DJ guy, right? And so, literally, from "Staying Alive" to "Golden," which was from the K-pop Demon Hunter soundtrack, right? It's so amazing. It's so good. That's what you program. They're like, "Oh, I know this one." And the thing is that once they're on the dance floor, they forget to have their social anxiety and worry about everybody else looking at them. They're just like, and you just keep them on the dance floor. You never slow it down. There are no slow dances on my thing because I don't want them to get self-conscious. And if the slow dance is the one where it's like, "Find a partner." Oh no. So they just go and we dance and we have a really good time. And and then I get to dance with my wife. But it's great because they're like I said, so I can control the dance and I know that I can do that. I think that, and it's fun for them to be like, "Yeah, we have a DJ. He's the world's foremost Hugo-winning DJ." And then finally, like I said, I mean, no one expects it, right? Come on.
Well, I want to go to that dance.
You can come to the dance.
I'm gonna
I've already said yes to DJing the dance at the WorldCon in Anaheim next year.
My hometown. I'm not gonna be there, but we'll
What?
talk about.
What?
I have other engagement. I gotta miss one of my favorite cons in the world, which is WorldCon. Don't miss it yourself. Go Anaheim Convention Center. Most exciting. Jim Morrison played there with the Doors. But in any case, we're really getting to that point in the evening that although I am really curious to get John's take on an opinion of and description of his teacher, at the University of Chicago, because this guy must have been a great test taker and smart guy in his youth. University of Chicago, Saul Bellow. But no, we'll save that for later. We need questions from the audience.
Okay, I have rules for questions from the audience. Questions must be in the form of a question. All questions must be one-part questions. All questions must be as short as you can make them. I used to say make them tweet length, but we don't talk about that site anymore. And the reason for this is not just because I'm a control freak, but is because there's a lot of you. You have already learned that I talk a lot, and so yes, we want to get to as many of you as possible. So, raise your hands.
We have, the mic
You can also
will be-
ask. You can also ask questions of Stan.
No, that's all right. The mic will be passed around, and so we're not choosing. The mic people are choosing who asks.
Yes.
Will there be a sequel to Starter Villain?
So the answer that I have for questions about sequels are, I never say never, but I have a lot of different things on the plate that I want to write. The thing that will make a sequel more likely, one, is Tor says, I really, really want you to write a sequel. Here's a bag of money. And the other thing that will make it likely is, so for example, Starter Villain is currently in development for a film by at Paramount Pictures and with Maximum Effort, which is Ryan Reynolds' production company. If they actually put it into production and schedule a release date, a sequel will magically appear somewhere near that release date, because here's a secret. I like money. Next question. Yeah. Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Hi.
As a writer myself, I always find that whenever you create really large worlds, it's really hard to keep track of all of your world building notes. So for all of the imaginative spaces you've created, what tools or software helps you kind of create order from all of the chaos and keep the facts straight?
Bold of you to assume. How do you do it? Because I'm curious. Because my answer will be unsatisfying. So I want to.
Once I realized I couldn't keep track, I began to buy gigantic rolls of butcher paper, white, not brown, because you could see white better, and a whole bunch of colored pens. And I began to draw the novel on the wall like a crazy person in a murder mystery. And indeed, that helped me.
I literally just keep it all in my head, and then I will scroll up and down the document to remember things. When I get into a multi-book series, I will sometimes reread the series, or sometimes if I have a very specific question, I'll go to the internet and say, what did I say about this? Because some guy will be like, oh, I know the answer to this one. You said this. And then I will be like, and then my brain will go, oh, yeah, that's right. Or I'll be like, oh, I'm pretty sure I didn't say that. And then I will do that. But in the world building that I'm doing in a specific novel, I just have the document right in front of me in my brain. And so I've always done it that way. Like when I was in college, people would buy my used books because they're like, there are going to be so many notes on it. And it was blank. And they're like, how do you take notes? And I'm like, some of us don't. Next question.
Right here in the front.
So your nonfiction that comes from your blog talks a lot about your kitties, and I'm wondering how they're all doing.
So currently we have 4 cats. They are Sugar and Spice, Team Spice, and then Smudge, who is our Tux. And then we have a new cat who is called a kitten, black cat, called Saja. I was home very briefly. I've been on the road for most of the month. And they're all doing very well. Sugar and Spice. So we got the new kitten. We got the new kitten because my daughter rescued 3 parking lot kittens. We rehomed 2 of them to one house so that they could be together, and we were going to rehome the black kitten to a house that had an elderly cat pass on, and the other remaining cat had been lonely, so they were going to get the other cat. Unfortunately, the person who wanted the cat forgot to tell their spouse, who was still mourning the other cat, so it was all very complicated. So, but we decided to keep the kitten, and Smudge was like, "That's great, another cat, cool," and they play with each other and stuff like that. And the girl cats, Sugar and Spice, hate the new kitten. Every time they see the new kitten, they're like, "I'm going to fucking cut you. I'm going to cut you, and I'm going to leave your intestines on the floor for the dog to eat." And the dog's like, "I will eat those. I will 100% eat those." And, of course, it's a little black kitten. The little black kitten doesn't care because it's a little black kitten. And it's the most adorable black kitten, except for 3 a.m. at night, where it goes, "I have a hunger, and I have a hunger for your face." And it literally will come and will start trying to chew on my face. And then if I block him from the face, he'll chew on the ear. So at night, this is how I sleep. I sleep on my side, and I have a sheet hooked over my ear and my face like this. They can't get through the fingers. So they're fine. I don't have a lot of sleep. Next question. Okay, back here.
Hi, so you were talking about your accelerated writing schedule at times, even writing a novel in 2 weeks. And I'm just wondering, in the midst of that kind of like churn and trying to keep track of all the books to write, how do you still challenge yourself as a writer or find those unique opportunities to do so?
Do you need more challenge than a novel?
I mean, this is the thing is like, I have more ideas than I will ever write in my lifetime. The ideas, I just have like lots of ideas, and then people are like, "Where do the ideas come from?" I'm like, they come from literally everywhere. It's like I will look out the window and I will be like, my brain 3 minutes later will have concocted an entire scenario. I'm at my hotel. There were 2 ants that got into the bathroom. I'm like, how did they get in? There's something wrong with this hotel room. And then I imagined a story where, it's just the ants living in the wall, just all of a sudden collapsing in, all that sort of stuff. So ideas aren't the problem. The problem is that I will die without doing all the books that I could possibly write, partly just because, I have so many ideas, and partly because, I'm only one person. So for me, the challenge isn't that. The challenge is editing. Picking the right ideas, the ones that interest me and the ones that intrigue me. And mostly the way that I do that is I think of an idea. I'm like, "Oh, that's an interesting idea." And then I don't write it down, because if I think about it the next day, no, you don't write it down, because if you think about it,
It comes back, it's a good one.
if it comes back, then I will be like, "Oh, this is a good idea," and then I won't write it down again. And then a week later, if I'm still thinking about it, "Oh, this is a good idea," and then I won't write it down. And then a month later, and then a year later, and by that time, enough information has accreted around it that then it drops, and then I'm like, "Okay, this is what I'm going to write about." For example, the moon turning to cheese. Like, this is a stupid idea. But then I started thinking about all the implications of that and everything else like that. And I actually was going to write it like 5 years ago, or no, excuse me, like 10 years ago. And then stupid Neil Stephenson came out with 7 Eves, which has nothing to do with the moon turning to cheese, but is still weird things are happening with the moon. So I put it on the back burner for years until I could put it out, and people were like, "Steve, Neil Stephenson just did that." And I'm like, so now nobody thinks of my cheese moon being related to his moon busting into 7 pieces for
no reason at all.
For no reason at all. Right, exactly. And that's the other thing. Why did it happen? Because I needed it to happen. Why did he have it happen? Because he needed it to happen. We don't all research like you do.
Well, plots are plots. You got to have something happen.
Yeah. Next question.
Next question.
So for me, a big part of Scalzi voice is this sense of justice, that justice will prevail in a lot of books, and person who wins, I don't know if it's winning, but underdog comes out on top somehow.
Sure.
And I'm wondering where that comes from. Is it just part of your personality, or is there some event in your life that led you to that?
So I think part of it is just me. But part of it is also education. I have a friend here who went to high school with me. We both took this class called Individual Humanities, and the idea of individual humanities was the development of the individual who sees as their highest life crisis service to the community. And inherent in that concept is the concept of justice. The idea that your participation in the community is something that it is of value for the community, that the community is of value to you, and that you try to keep everything kind of on an even keel. I also went to a school that had an honor code, right? Which it's easy to say, school has an honor code, just like, we have, lots of places have codes. But it was something that in my brain actually made sense. They were like, the teachers would leave the room while we were taking the tests because we had an honor code. And they were like, obviously you will, adhere to the honor code. Most did, some didn't, but that's the way it is. Some people will always take advantage of something. But for me, the idea that there was that underlying code of honor and that injustice, if you would say, I think informed a lot of my thinking about stuff. So a lot of it comes from the education. But the other thing is that it just really pisses me off when people who are awful get to win. Right. I don't believe that is the right natural order of things. And we are in a time right now where it seems like a lot of really crappy people are on top. And we all have a responsibility to be the justice that we want in the world, to be the righteousness that we want to see in the world, to be the people who build the world we want to see. And one of the reasons that I put all of that into my books is I write the world I want to see, and the world I want to see is one that has justice in it. Does it mean that I'm a perfect vessel for that? No. Does it mean that my books are perfect examples? No. But ultimately, I'm an optimistic person. We're in a bad time right now. But we have been in bad times before. And what gets us through the bad times is each other and our communities. And what we as individuals decide to contribute to our communities, in recognizing that what we can do as individuals is be there for our communities. And so I believe that we will find our way to righteousness. And I hope I'm right.
Beautiful.
You're here.
We have time for just
two more questions. Okay.
May I ask a question of Stan?
Yes, you may.
You may.
Thank you. You're both really fantastic. Sorry to detract from your rules for a moment. But Stan, you end Ministry for the Future on a hopeful and optimistic note. And given the turn that our world has taken, as you've just summarized, have you yourself thought about a sequel to that book?
Oh, God. Well, I would prefer not, but I'm trying to think what novel to write next, because I want to, and it's been a pretty big gap, partly because of Ministry for the Future kind of taken over my life. And that's been great, but if you like to write novels, and it's not a giant club, because actually there's quite a few novelists that don't even like writing novels.
Yeah.
But some people like writing novels, and I do. I want to get back to it. Well, I was going to run the table of all science fiction subgenres. Alternative history, done that. Mm-hmm. Colonizing another planet, done that. Near future, whatever, done that. It goes on and on. I still think I need to write a telepathy novel, so hold me to that. But I've kind of been cutting off the limbs of the tree, and I'm at the top of the tree, and there are no more limbs. And so that's an internal reason for the pause, not an external reason of my life being grabbed by this ministry gig. So coming back to it, I'm thinking of the detective story. I'm thinking of a mystery. I love them. Ellery Queen, John Dixon Carr, the locked room mysteries of the 1940s. I love them dearly. So I'm thinking of a mystery. But can you escape climate change? No, you can't escape climate change. So could you put a mystery in a climate changed world? You could. So I'm scrabbling my way into a next thing, and I don't want it to be seen as a sequel to Ministry for the Future. I want that to just stand there like a crushing weight on your brain with no way out. So I need to learn from Ministry, and you remember the eyewitness accounts in Ministry for the Future. People were telling you in first person what happened to them 10 years before, and they're going really fast. I mean, they're going faster than a Scalzi novel.
Yeah.
And I got the form, I got the content. Now I need the characters and the plot. But I'm on the brink, so I'm thinking. And so it'll not be a sequel, but I don't think any of us can escape climate change at least I can't. I'm stuck with it. It's my ball and chain, and that's kind of true for everybody. So it's maybe a good thing to stick with it without doing a sequel.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take one last question. And a reminder, everybody, we are going to have a book signing in the back, and buy books.
Yes.
You're not let out unless you buy one of John's books.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Just loved your answer about education and how it shaped your values. And I was wondering, when you guys look at the questions and problems we have today and are facing the next generation, if you had to design a class that every high school in America had to have on their curriculum, what would it be on? And what would a book be on that curriculum?
I was about to say, we've only got a couple of minutes here.
I
so
know.
I don't know about that. But
Hey, it's a good idea. This is a good question, a syllabus.
yeah.
A few books, we can name them pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I come back to this idea of the individual humanities class, where the idea is embedding the idea that we all belong in a community, right? And when we talk about a community, is not a community that's in a sort of exclusive thing that we have the people on the inside and then we have the people on the outside, because our communities can be the town that we live in. Like, I live in a little town of Bradford. That's 1,800 people. That's my community. I live in the world of science fiction. That is my community as well. I am on Blue Sky, which is a social media site. That's my community as well. It doesn't have to be one exclusive community. It can be multiple communities. But again, the question is, how do you as an individual make that thing better? Now, when we were doing individual humanities, because it was very rooted in the Western tradition, we started with Oedipus Rex, and we moved all the way through from Oedipus to things like Hamlet, we did the Odyssey, we did Man and Superman, we did, Huck Finn, all that sort of stuff. And I don't think you need to stick to those particular books, because there is more to the world than just Western civilization and the ideals of Western civilization. But I do think you would say, what are the books that show the individual participating in the community for better or for worse? All the examples that I could give, from classical stuff would be Western, because that was my education, all the way from, and some of them might be things like Ibsen's, Enemy of the People, or, things like that. But those would be the books that I would want, the ones that show that the benefit for the individual participating in the community, and the benefit of having the community, having the individuals back and giving them a context for who they are as they've developed. Stan, what do you think?
It would be a quarter or a semester that tried to lay out for, say, entering freshmen what you need to know to orient yourself. So a kind of cognitive mapping. So you need something on ecology. There's a book called How Many People Can the Earth Support that's on human ecology by a Joel Cohen. I've often thought we should start with that and see what our numbers are. And then the biological crisis, the interconnectedness of us, some things on the humanity as spread out into the environment, like a jellyfish or like a forest. Books about human biology that are up to date in terms of brain science, and in fact that 50% of your DNA inside your body is an alien DNA, which is a great science fiction story.
It really is.
And it's real.
Most of your cells aren't you.
Orientation, and then political economy. You need some history. You need some political economy. What kind of an economy are we in? Is it natural? Well, no. But how did it come about? Could it be changed for the better? Well, yes. But how would you do that? And so by then the quarter would be over. And they would go off into the world thinking, at least I've got a contemporary, up to the moment orientation to the world. And I can agree or disagree with certain aspects of it, but if I would like to teach that class, and I don't like to teach. But that class might be good. I actually loved teaching when I was a teacher. I taught 11 years of freshman composition, and I loved it dearly. And I know how to write a sentence and where commas go, because this was 66 classes of the same subject over and over again. And the repetition was a little grueling or repetitive. The repetition was really repetitive. But improving people's writing in 10 weeks was a kind of a glorious activity, because it's not that hard for native English speakers. As a second language, it's hard. If it's your native language, you can be a good writer as soon as certain poisons are withdrawn from your system. It's very homeopathic. So I love teaching, and that would be a good class. So maybe this is a good thing to end on, is we're all teachers of our friends, our children, our parents, et cetera. So this is part of the being in the community.
Yeah.
Be a little bit of a sharer of information that people need right now, because we are in a bad, dangerous spot.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Stan.
Thank you, John.
Yes.
Our star.
And thank you to the JCC for having us tonight, and to Litquake for having us as well. We are going to be signing books in the back. Please come see us.
The mayor of science fiction. Give him a big applause.